welcome back to another episode of the Zero Empty Spaces podcast, episode 73, with Design Center of the Americas resident artist of ours, Frank Papandrea, here from his space inside the Dakota in Dania Beach, Florida. If you didn't know about Zero Empty Spaces, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, started an initiative to activate vacant commercial real estate spaces so talented artists like him can have space to create, collaborate, get discovered, sell and show, and all the things outside of their homes, which has led to a myriad of win-win-win benefits with the first 33 spaces we've activated over the last 6 years across 4 states. But the point of the podcast is to connect you with the talented artists like him that make the program what it is, which we're certainly glad to have you. So without much further ado, for those that are not familiar with you and don't know your story, can you kind of maybe take us back to how you initially got started in the arts?
As everyone else has done, they started drawing when they were kids, and I continued that love affair to today. I was always in the creative arts in one form or another, in school, and then in business, majored in fashion illustration at the School of Visual Arts. I love to draw, I love pencil on paper, and did that for a couple of years. Unfortunately, it was when the fashion illustration business was dying. Photography took over, and I did some women's wear, some Gentleman's Quarterly magazines, some illustrations in there, but that business died. Luckily, I had a graphic arts background, art director, so I did that. I did some sign painting, which helped me control hand-eye coordination, which worked for the pen and ink drawings that you love so much, splitting little lines in half. And the creative, in the graphic arts, art direction, graphic design, the creative process was, my need for the creative process was satiated there, and I did not do much artwork during that period until then in 1980, a partner and I, we put together a magazine called Dry New York. There was a magazine on the West Coast called Wet, which was a very slick new wave magazine. And we decided, well, we're in New York, we need to be dry. And it was a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper folded in half, black and white. And it was, we recorded the art, music, and intellectual scene in New York City. So I went to all the shows, saw all the bands, photographed all the bands. We put them in the magazine. We created cartoons. We did some lifestyle stuff. And it was not financially successful, but artistically successful. We enjoyed every moment. And it went on for about 3 years, distributed in New York, California, and London. And we were lucky enough to get a letter one day from the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian Institute, and they said, would you mind submitting your magazines for possible inclusion in their collection of small periodicals? And we got a letter back 2 months later, and they said, you're included.
Wow.
So we're in the Library of Congress, Smithsonian. That was in 1983. So a couple of years ago, I'm looking at old pieces of information from Dry Magazine, and I saw the letter, and I thought, wow, that's got to be on the internet somewhere. And sure enough, I went to the Library of Congress and looked that up, and there my name was, the magazine, the address, which was my old address where I lived, and I was elated to see it. And so I continued in the graphic arts art direction until I retired in 2005, came down here in 2011. The pen and ink work that you like so much that I did, I started that in the 70s and early 80s, and then dropped out of that, started it again, in 2011, when I entered into we were just talking about the Boca Museum Guild and won second prize, which was kind of blew me away. I never won anything. I never had any recognition for that work. And I thought, really, I can do this. And then just kept drawing and entering and being in galleries, and I've won a number of awards for that. And at some point, I got bored doing that, which I do quite a lot. And I started doing the abstract work. And I found that was very satisfying. It communicated a sense of joy and happiness, and I got that back from people who had purchased the art. So I start to think that the black and white pen and ink work that I did was a communication of sorts. And I felt that that's what we are. Artists, writers, singers, songwriters, we're communicators.
Mm-hmm.
Artist is a kind of general term, but communication is really more what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
So I continued with the abstract art, which was exciting for me, and people enjoyed it and purchased it. And then I got bored again. And I had no idea what to do, and I'm driving, and I asked God, give me something, tell me what I should draw, what I should do next. And I'm looking at it, the windshield of my car, and I see clouds, and it just hit me. I'm going to paint clouds. And so I've been painting clouds now for about 3 months. Well, that's a dark one. That's one in progress. And I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. And I'm in the middle of that, and I'll probably get bored again and start something else. Who knows?
It's been a very interesting creative life, and kind of one creativity led to another. And also, kudos to you, one door closed, but you didn't like let that close, fashion illustration. You let that
closed, and then I was in the graphic arts. I was an art director for a magazine. That closed, and it opened up the door to the arts even more. And I'm here now in other galleries. And the creative process, if it's in your bones, you never let anything interfere with the work, pursuing that endeavor. You just don't.
Correct. And thankfully, it has been well appreciated and now becoming to be collected. And it's not just, something that you find beneficial for your own creativity and mental health, but other people find it.
That's an interesting thing that you just said, for your own benefit and for your own personal satisfaction. When you start in the arts, it's pure. You're
Right.
creating a piece of art. You never think about the financial end. You never think about sales. But then you reach a point where you've got to start buying canvases and paint, and now all of a sudden sales are important. And you never thought about that whole business end, the whole marketing end. I was lucky enough to go to a business school when I first started college, and I learned that end of the business, marketing. Learned marketing through my entire career in communications. And I realized that that's an incredibly important part, and I tell all the kids around here how important that is to people finding out who you are. Nobody knows who you are. They're not going to come and search you out. You got to go get them. So I started doing my own marketing, my own emails, my own social media posts. Every day, I tell them 2 hours a day just devoted to that. You have these opportunities where artists in the 16th, 17th, 18th century didn't have, early 20th century, didn't have those opportunities, and they were painting in obscurity. Now you have that opportunity. Just take your time. And I tell them I'll help them out, do whatever they need. But that is important, because from that purity of just creating a wonderful piece of art to now having to sell that piece of art,
Right.
That's a business. That's a business. And that's what we're in. We're in a business. Getting galleries to show your work is very difficult.
Correct. Or you're going to just be stacking up canvases.
I got a ton.
Right. And you can only paint over so many and repaint them.
I've done that. There's a couple of clouds around here that used to be abstract pieces.
Right.
And they're just sitting in your closet, and I just gessoed over. And one of the pieces here I've gessoed over 5 times. You start something, you don't like it. And believe me, through the centuries, artists have done that.
Correct.
Over and over again.
And Basquiat was doing that on his own work and, contributed to his process. But, and then I'm glad that you mentioned that business element of it, right? Because I think most people do get. I don't really think anybody's really like, I'm gonna paint to make money, like initially, like when they first get their first canvas. But it is something to be mindful of, and also things change as your career changed, your artwork changed, your thought processes changed. I know you've been around from School of Visual Arts, New York City, the magazine, and just growing up, you've seen a lot, which has contributed to you becoming a lifelong creative.
Yeah, the time in the late 70s, early 80s when I was in Soho and downtown, NoHo, Soho, all of those galleries down there, you could just walk in. And you could see all the super realists at that time and all the other artists. Today it's a little more difficult. I don't recognize the Lower East Side anymore. But I met a number of those people, Basquiat and all those people in bars, and you see them, you chat for a second. And I was taking photographs, so everybody wanted to pose and say hi. But it's still a business. Even they knew it back then.
Correct.
A lot of those people understood they had to make connections and how to make connections. And it's very difficult today because there are so many more artists than there were even in the 80s. Art school was pumping them out left and right. And we have a number of them here who are very talented but struggling to sell.
Correct. And finding their own voice and finding their own creativity, finding their own style. And thankfully, although you've transitioned multiple times in various facets of your creative life and creative career, you've found what's called to you, what you've been inspired to do. I would just be curious, since you've seen so much art and been around so much creativity and had a very strong, beginning to your creative career, School of Visual Arts, being Soho back in the day. What are some of your inspirations maybe back then? I know, and then your art obviously changed once you became a full-time artist, but who's inspired you as an artist?
Yeah. Growing up, it was always the classic masters, Michelangelo and Da Vinci, Rembrandt. I always wanted to paint like them, but that was way before I went to art school. And then when I got there, I was exposed to the Impressionists and Sargent and Degas, and those people were very inspirational to me in the beginning. Oddly enough, I went in a totally different direction, pen and ink, very tight renderings in pen and ink, and which were fun to do, time consuming. But at the time, there was a lot of social issues going on. And even in the past 10 years, that influenced me to taking certain elements and putting them on the paper to communicate a message. And those individual icons that I put on the paper sometimes were confrontational. And I love that. I don't want to bore anybody. So I love that, and I produce more of them. I did a series called Fences, which is a fence in between two groups of people, and it's the thing that keeps those people apart. And I love that piece, especially the one with Muhammad and Jesus. It's a fence in the middle, and it says, God is on my side, which, okay.
Right.
And I did it, and I entered it into the Art Serve show, and I got a call from the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel, and the art critic said, you're not allowed to draw Muhammad. This religion says you can't do it. And I said, well, this is the United States. I can draw whatever the fuck I want. I don't really give a shit. And he reviewed the piece and the show, and Art Serve was thinking about pulling it from the show, and they did put it in the show, and on a wall all by itself with nothing else around it, just in case. So in talking to my son, I was trying to figure out a way to prevent any controversy or issues, And we came up with the idea of putting a piece of plastic in front of it and allowing people to write their comments all over the piece. So it turned into a series of pieces that I did called Write on My Art. And it's a piece of plastic, and I started myself. I did the first thing, and I had 2 pens hanging, and people wrote all over it. It was a huge success. And I did that on a couple of other pieces and other shows. Same thing, big success. People were free to write the comments all
on the plastic?
On the plastic that was in front of the art.
I've never seen
So
that.
it didn't damage the art.
That's interesting.
And 2 of those pieces won Best in Show. And that was a way to alleviate the issues. But all of my work, all of the pen and ink work, the later work, were not just portraits, although I did some of those. They were pieces that are social commentary, talked about issues in the world, and how we can alleviate the fence between you and I. There's no reason for that fence.
Correct.
Because all of those fences are a myth.
Correct.
Everything is a myth. Everything we've known, somebody came up with.
Which is a story, which is what art communicates, is through storytelling. And you've told some, from what I understand and appreciate them to be stories through the pen and ink work, which you mentioned, and I appreciate that I've always found, because the hyperrealism, the amount of time that it takes for you to complete the work, the levels of intricacy, it is really just fascinating, but I also understand it might not be the most practical for sales, might not be the most...
No. The only people who bought those pieces were the artists. And they were in magazines. One illustration I did called Domesticity, which is a woman, a couple of models I photographed, which is a woman has someone grabbing her from behind. You can see the man behind her, and it's about domestic abuse. It was in a magazine, and it won Best Magazine Illustration, won a Charlie Award. Those kinds of illustrations are what I always wanted to create. I was always fascinated by Women's Wear Daily, not Women's Wear Daily, Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan. They'd have stories, and then there would be illustrations in those magazines, and I always was fascinated by them, mostly because they look like a scene from a movie. And so I was putting together those groupings to make it look like a scene from a movie as opposed to just a portrait of one person. In my case, I took it the next step and made it into social commentary.
So, and I know that work is not what you're currently focusing on right now at the current iteration, but it definitely, it's been a fan favorite of mine out of the thousands of pieces of artwork that I've seen.
The panel I was on with Sergio Gomez about 2 months ago.
At the NSU.
Yep. Right. The last question he asked was, what is influencing you to create the art? And mine was my age. I'm in the last quarter of the football game, maybe even overtime. And at this point, you become introspective. And I believe that the clouds, the loneliness of the clouds, the astral look to my abstract paintings have a spiritual quality. The single cloud by itself it's kind of like a loneliness of the artist, always creating something out of nothing. You talk to an accountant, a plumber, they know exactly how to fix whatever they're doing. Accountant knows how to get the information so that he can come up with the answer that the client is looking for. We come into a studio on a blank canvas, or a writer with a blank page, and we have to come up with something from nothing. And we have to put it on a wall and have people, strangers, come in, look at it, and criticize it. That's really debilitating. It's incredibly courageous to do that. God bless everyone who does that. It's a difficult thing. So you need a point of view, and for me right now, it's my age. It's something that I don't care about the criticism anymore, because you passed it.
Right.
I'm past it. But this subject matter resonates with me, and I'm positive it has something to do with my age.
Well, I know that you share what's important for you, which that's one of the key things like that highlight on the podcast of why you create. What do you hope the viewer, let's say they stumble in here and you're not here and they're viewing and interacting with your artwork and considering purchasing and collecting, what do you want the viewer to feel or to get from the experience of interacting with you?
Yeah, it's the same thing that everyone has told me when they purchased my art. They felt happy. There was a man who purchased 2 pieces, and he was a doctor, and all day he saw patients who were ill. And we were in his apartment putting the work up, and he said, I love looking at this because I feel joyous, I feel happy. He said, I got up in the morning, I look at the painting, and I feel upbeat and happy, look at the fun colors, and then I go to work and do whatever. I come home, I look at it again, and I'm positive, I feel good. And that's what I try to communicate with the abstract pieces. And the same thing with any other painting I've done. This is the first time I put paint on canvas.
Really?
Back in the 70s, I did a lot of watercolors. I studied oil painting with Harvey Dinnerstein and Chuck Close and Schwartz, Daniel Schwartz. I studied painting with those people. And it was okay. It was okay. It just didn't resonate with me. I don't know. I love drawing. I love feeling the pencil on a piece of paper on a piece of wood and feel the wood behind it and get the texture, which is the way I learned how to draw in SVA. There's my mentor, Jack Potter, who was a magazine illustrator. He did Coca-Cola, a number of other clients. And I was lucky enough to get him my first year at School of Visual Arts, my drawing teacher. And he wasn't just teaching you drawing, he was drawing and seeing. So when you're drawing, you're seeing the person, but what's going on? How do I integrate everything? And then place it on a piece of paper. It became graphic design. Place it on a piece of paper so that the viewer is interested in looking at it. And he taught me manipulation. When someone looks at your work, you're manipulating them. You're getting their eye to move. And you got to hold it. And that's another thing I try to do with my work. Get them almost hypnotized, that they can't take their eye away from something. There was a woman here earlier who was looking at one of my abstract pieces, and she thought it was 2 paintings on top. No, it's 1 painting, it's just the technique. But she said, it's kind of, I can't stop looking at it. It just keeps. And I said, yeah, that's the whole point to a great artist, a great piece of art, captivating. So in the drawing class, I learned the thought process. And it stayed with me through graphic design, because when you're an art director, you're designing a page, an editorial page, and how do I get the viewer to turn the page and go from this corner to this corner and turn the page again? Just keep them turning the pages, and so you design the page that way. If you're doing an advertisement, it's the same thing on doing a piece of art. You design the ad to captivate the viewer so that they look at it and they don't know why I can't turn the page. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what we should all be doing. How do we captivate the viewer?
And just how I love to stare at the clouds at time for endless periods of time, I could stare at your artwork.
You're looking at clouds today when you're driving home to Europe.
I could stare at these clouds, and it's interesting because, I don't even see the same thing twice. I see it from different perspectives.
There are other people, there are super realists who do these amazing tight renderings, paintings of clouds. But they're antiseptic. They have no life. They're like photographs, like super real paintings. They have no life. It's when you can see the brushstrokes, when you can feel the emotion that the artist used when he put the paint on the canvas. That's what gives it life. That's what intoxicates you. And that's how you manipulate your viewer.
And it's so interesting. I didn't even really think about that you had not put paint on canvas, yet you have been in art, but pen and ink, right, and fashion illustration and all these different things.
I taught a class at the School of Visual Arts one year. And it was an art on how to make money with your art when I was doing the magazine. And they all wanted to know how to draw, how to paint, how to do watercolor, all this crap. I said, forget all that. Not important. What's your idea? Write it on a piece of paper, the idea. Then figure out how you can take that idea and communicate it to this person. What is it going to be? Is it going to be a painting, a play, a performance art? What is it going to be? What is the best way? Form and content. Those are the two most important things. Style is the form of content. Content's the idea, and the style, the form has to complete the circle. The form has to work with the content in order to make the communication whole. It's something that has been inbred in me for a long time.
I didn't, a lot of what you're sharing, like me not being a practicing artist, but an appreciator of art, I'm not so cognizant of all the, even when you were describing the advertising and putting an ad together, or putting together a magazine or an editorial, you're creating it and directing the viewer in such a way to view to turn the page. With your artwork, you're training the viewer to keep looking at the artwork, to feel happy, to engage with the artwork. I really appreciate, and the form, like, right, I like your clouds better because they're not perfect, because I can actually see the brush strokes, because this is actually something I can relate to, versus why would I just buy a photograph of a cloud if it was so perfect?
Well, a photograph is one thing, but to take a photograph and reproduce it on a canvas, what the fuck for? I could never. I'm amazed by the technique, but it's cold.
Right.
It's antiseptic. It's not for me. But Ben Shawn wrote a book called The Shape of Content, and form is the shape of content. And it's a wonderful little book. I don't think it's published anymore, but you can probably pick it up secondhand. It's a wonderful book about, one of the other things he says is the harshest critic is the artist himself. I'm the harshest critic of my work that anyone else could ever be.
Yeah.
You see the issues right up front. If you don't see them consciously, you're seeing them unconsciously. It's a lonely little thing you do.
And some people, if you're oftentimes introverted as an artist, or you only work at home and you got nobody else to bounce the ideas off of, it could be a brutal, painstaking, cut off your ear in the process life. If you don't have somebody that you could turn to, say, hey, what do you think about that? And that's one of the great things that we kind of like about having the studios here, is you can get insight and you can get inspiration, and you could share ideas, you could share resources, you could share muses.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that my wife is an excellent, she has excellent taste.
Who also went to art school.
She did. And I show her my work all the time, and she's harsh. She's harsh.
The second harshest critic.
She's tough, and she's every time she selects something to go on a show, wins best in show. It's eerie. She does it all the time. Blows me away. But she's got great taste.
Hey.
And so yeah, bouncing. I like to work alone.
Sure.
I don't bouncing stuff off people. I'm not good working in groups.
Sure.
Even when I was an art director, creative director, I didn't like brainstorming. I can brain in my own storm. I don't need a group of people. My ideas, I feel, it's just my ego. My ideas are always perfect, which really pisses a lot of people off. But just do what I tell you to do. It's going to be okay.
Well, even if it doesn't maybe not benefit you directly as much as I've found it's benefit others, and I appreciate, and the others have appreciated the insights and the knowledge and the experience and your point of view that you have shared, having lived a long creative life and career, and you've actually really helped some of the younger artists specifically with your time. And I know you shared from previous potlucks that you've attended some phenomenal resources and books. I know you just mentioned one on
a book by Kandinsky, The Spiritual in Art.
Okay.
Terrific book. about your unconscious and why you do what you do. It's amazing. Shape of Content is terrific. Art and Fear by David Bayless, which I listen to these books when I'm working out, when I'm painting. That's a very good book, especially for people who are young. It helps you overcome that fear to just do the thing, get the paint on the canvas, or get that pencil out and draw. Just do it. It comes to you over time. Be persistent. That's another very good book, Art and Fear. But yeah, I try to. I don't ever tell anybody what to do.
Right.
You never tell anybody use yellow. Don't make the stroke so big. You just try to tell them to think more. It's there. Just bring it to the forefront. It's there. Just take your time. You don't have to put paint on canvas right away. Just sit there and think. If you read about Rothko, he stared at the canvas. Music, Beethoven was playing, and he'd be staring at the canvas, just staring at it until he figured they're just big blocks of color. You think I just slap it on there and get it over with, but no, he'd just stare at the canvas, and it was a contemplative thing. It was a very spiritual thing, and that's what we do. And it's a very lonely feeling. God knows he was lonely.
And that's why I appreciate you sharing about like the fear. And there's so many people that are so hesitant to take that first step, or so self-critical, or so, whatever the case may be. You've taken so many steps. I mean, we're only in your studio here at Dakota, which is outside your home studio, where you have a lot of your other work, older work, but you've faced the fear. And one of the pieces that I love to highlight, that I'm so fortunate to be the owner of, is the mirror from Art Fort Lauderdale.
That is my favorite piece of all time. Concept piece. I've done couple, 3 or 4 of those. One sold at Art Fort Lauderdale, which kind of blew me away. God bless that guy who bought it. And then the mirror is again, it's because of where I am in life. Contemplative. It's a mirror. Half the mirror is painted black. The other half is a mirror. And on the mirror side it says life in mirror type. And on the black side it says death in black. As an adult, you get it. As a young person, a lot of young people don't get it.
Right.
And please, the mirror part, that's the part that's important to you. Enjoy the life, because you get to my age really fast.
And we
don't know what the next thing is.
I've had some tremendous introspective, reflective processes interacting with the mirror, which I'm once again grateful to own, having it over my toilet. And every time I would go to take a piss, I would look at it. And sometimes on some of my introspective psychedelic journeys, I would really reflect, and it would really put things in perspective. And I
really gave it a place of honor, didn't you?
That where I see it and interact with it multiple times a day. But the life part, it is interesting. And then it actually became even kind of relevant during COVID for me personally, because I knew some people that unfortunately I grew up with that committed suicide, and some people that also told me they were contemplating suicide during COVID. And I really, you can easily go towards the black, you could easily go towards death, but if you choose to look at the mirror, if you choose to look at the bright side and the life side, there's so much there.
It's probably just my own thought, but I think a lot of people think when they die, they go to another life like this. Or when they commit suicide, people are going to feel bad that I'm dead or something. And no, it's black. You don't know.
Right.
You have no clue, and that's why I painted that. And again, it's because of my age. It just felt that was... The other piece that sold that was my self-portrait.
Correct.
Blew me. Why anybody wanted to buy that thing, I have no idea. But that sold too. That was fun to do, all those faces.
We'd love to bring it back, and that's, I guess, how we initially connected.
Yeah.
Was kind of what led to Zero Empty Spaces. Was when we were doing the art fair inside of these mansions that were for sale, that were vacant, that people got to on a boat, and you know, all good things unfortunately come to an end at some point when COVID happened. You know, we hope to bring it back one day in the future when we get a funder or a sponsor, or we're just so rich that we could just do it on our own.
That was a fun thing.
But we're certainly glad that that experience of activating residential real estate that was vacant for sale led in part to the creation of Zero Empty Spaces, which led us here to the Dakota, the Design Center of the Americas, this iconic building here in Broward County.
And you're doing it in other states.
We've opened 33 of them over the last 6 years across 4 states, and the future is very bright. To continue supporting artists in Broward County, my home county, where I'm born and raised from, and beyond. But while we're here, I would like to just take the camera and maybe just show them a little bit of your process in the studio, if you'd be so kind.
Sure. How you doing? We're just looking at some of the work. This is some abstract work that I've done on canvas here, and this is the more spiritual stuff that I was doing. It started out as clouds, but turned into some astral crazy thing. These are the abstracts. Everybody asks me how I do it. And it's actually a piece of plastic from Home Depot. And I pass paint on the back. So you're looking through the plastic at the paint. It's some of the paint's on the front just to offer some three-dimensional quality. They drop a shadow on there. I will tape certain parts of it, paint the background, peel the tape up, and create a contrasting line of different color. I was trying to find a way of getting this gloss on the paintings that entailed varnish or epoxy or something. And I didn't want to do that. And then I saw an artist using this technique, and I tried it out, and it worked out perfectly. And it shines, clean it up. It's really the best way for me to do any of these abstract pieces. Some are framed, some are not. They don't need to be framed, but some are. And I really leave that up to the individual purchaser, the client. And then the cloud paintings, I start them out just kind of swerving around, and then with glazes, using a medium, I start to build the texture and the depth.
Interesting. Very cool. And the last question we like to wrap up here on the podcast with is, what do you like the most about having a studio to create in outside your home?
That's interesting, because I often thought, what's the point? And this was the first opportunity that I jumped at because of the location. And when I started working here, I found that it was an inspirational environment to create pieces. The lighting was good. The other artists were inspirational. But it's just another place to go. I can't think of the exact words, but I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
And we enjoy having you here. 24 other artist studios here at Dakota. You've definitely been a great addition. If they'd like to see more of your work and find you on social media, where can they find you?
FrankPapandrea.com.
Papandrea is spelled like this. Okay. And very active.
No space.
Very active on social media.
Yes.
So you can see the work there. You can meet Frank and some of the other fellow artists on their monthly open studios, which is the first Friday of the month, currently from 4 to 7 p.m.
Thought it was a third Friday.
I'm sorry, third Friday of the month. Thank you very much. From 4 to 7 p.m. It's on our Eventbrite, on Facebook, and put it in our newsletter. so you can meet and interact with and hear from. Tour studios of 24 other talented artists as well, though he's one of the most talented, obviously, here. And have some other cool events coming up, some other things in the works, some fall-inspired events, some other ways to get people to view and interact with the arts. A lot of artists are teachers here. We've hosted our artist potlucks here, which is a nice way to bring people together over a meal and some discourse. So we look forward to many more things, making a bigger impact, continue to support talented local artists emerging and established like yourself. And we're just grateful to have you part of the program. I've called you a friend now for a few years.
So when are you going to run for office?
Hey.
It's like Councilman Evan Snow here.
It might be in the works at some point. A pension sounds good, but
vote for him.
we got to find the right place first. But definitely appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you tuning in.
Listen, thanks for coming. Thanks for the makeup and hair and all of the whole studio, all the people here. Joe, how are you? Freddie, love it. Thank you. Thanks for all coming.
This guy was made for show business. Come check him out. We're in Dakota, 1855 Griffin Road.
I wish I knew you were coming. I would have prepared something.
Showroom B 102, Atrium B. The jokes are free as well. So we look forward to seeing you on the next one. And feel free to reach out with any questions, info@zeroemptyspaces.com. And we'll see you soon. Cheers.